My sister died when her two children were very young. Her husband raised the children as a single dad until he died 3 years ago. My niece, let's call her Brenda, is 34. My niece, let's call him Brian, is 30. I, 49 female, have always been close with Brenda. I took her under my wing after my sister died. She comes to me for guidance. I have my own children, but I consider Brenda my bonus daughter. She was very close with her father, and she was utterly devastated when he died suddenly. Brian has always been in his own world. He didn't have much of a relationship with his father, and he's always been distant with my children and me. He moved 13 hours away when he was 21, and he got married there. He barely visits. Brian hates Brenda. He estranged himself from her right after their father died. He claims that Brenda is a bully to him and his wife. He also claims that Brenda stole his inheritance. Brenda can be spirited and emotional sometimes, saying things she doesn't mean, but she's a good person with a big heart. She goes to church with me, and Brian and his wife haven't stepped foot in a church in a long time. Brenda helps me out with my mother, and Brian visits my mother, his grandmother, only every 1 or 2 years. So we have no idea what Brian is doing with his life. I stayed out of the inheritance situation because it's none of my business. Brenda was devastated when her brother disowned her. She has no family left except me, my children, and my mother. I spent a lot of time supporting her through it. Recently, my mother had a 75th birthday party, and Brian came. Of course, his wife couldn't be bothered to come. Brenda was out of town, so she wasn't there. Brian and I sat at the same table with my children and their significant others. I updated Brian on how Brenda was doing, and he blew up at me. He told me he didn't care about his sister and what was going on with her. He demanded that I stop talking about her. I told him that I wished he would make amends with her, and he scoffed and said it would never happen. I suggested that he move back home and maybe they'll get past all this, because it's what his parents would have wanted. He said nothing and stormed off. I was humiliated because he disrespectfully spoke to me in front of my children and talked so loudly that other tables could hear him. My son and his girlfriend admitted they don't like Brenda either. That was news to me, and I should respect Brian's wishes. I tried to explain my feelings, but they told me to post it here. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. You have no idea about Brian's side at all from what you wrote. So you're wrong to presume you can lecture him on that relationship, since you only know one side of it. And you were even more wrong to choose to discuss the situation with him at an event for your mother while you were sitting with a bunch of family members instead of asking to speak with him privately and not at a family event. The fact that you felt humiliated is entirely your own fault. How do you think Brian felt having a very sensitive issue brought up while he's at an event with a bunch of family members that he rarely sees? Going no contact is a big deal, and few people do this lightly. So why not speak to Brenda about getting anger management therapy, why your brother thinks she stole his inheritance, and maybe returning the money and making amends with her brother? Right? Poor guy moved 13 hours away and doesn't even want to hear if his sister's alive. Yet somehow OP thinks it's constructive advice to ask him to move back and make amends with his sister because dead people would have liked that? Sit down, OP. You are the idiot. Also, there's clear favoritism going on here. Like quite literally, the whole post goes on and on about how Brenda's such a wonderful blah 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 and how Brian is such an idiot because he doesn't like Brenda. Geez, I wonder why. I'm also wondering why OP needs to talk about how Brian doesn't go to church and Brenda does. Like, how does that matter at all? Is it because Brenda goes to church that OP favors her? Why is it that his wife couldn't be bothered to come, but Brenda was just out of town, so she wasn't there? Sounds like Brenda also couldn't be bothered to make it, but you know, she goes to church, so she can be a crappy person, and it's okay. OP, if you could have stayed out of the inheritance situation because it's none of your business, you can stay out of Brian's and Brenda's lack of relationship. Instead, maybe you should focus more on why even your son doesn't like Brenda and why that's news to you. It goes to show how much you favor Brenda. So I, 28 female, used to make $200K plus in my old job working at a big tech company. Really horrible working conditions, 12 to 16 hours, and I very nearly burnt out. I had a lot of company stocks on the line, but left before any of them were vested, so I got nothing. But in the end, it was all I could do to get up in the morning. So now I switched to a job making $120K. Still not bad, but the real benefit is how they treated me. A really relaxed environment. I never work a full 8 hours, usually more like 6. The best job I've had, and I plan to stay. The only thing is my parents and sisters are angry at me because I was paying my sister's childcare cost and then stopped. Her ex-husband divorced her and left the country, so she couldn't get child support from him. So now she has 2 kids and has to work. My parents live in Spain at the moment and can't help. So she asked me to pay for childcare, and I did for a while because it didn't affect me financially, making as much as I did. After I started job searching, I told her I wasn't paying for her childcare soon because my next job won't be as much. It isn't, but she's angry because she expected that I would pay for it forever. I told her I couldn't be expected to pay for it forever, but she's mad because she had to quit her job. After all, childcare was more expensive. She thinks because I paid for it once, I'm responsible until they can go to school, but that's insane to me. We had a fight where she blamed me for being weak and for quitting my high-paying job after complaining it was stressful, and told me she could handle any amount of stress if she did what I did. I lost my temper and told her to go to school and study instead of dating losers and dropping out, and then she can make what she wanted. She started yelling at me, and I hung up. Not the idiot. This isn't your responsibility. If push comes to shove, let her take the kids to Spain, and then she can live happily ever after with your parents. And what's the deal with Spain being the reason the parents can't help? It's not like a lost continent with no internet access. With the options of bank transfers, Venmo, Cash App, and the like, they would if they wanted to help. You did something really kind in supporting your sister for as long as you did. However, that doesn't obligate you to support her forever, and it definitely doesn't give her the right to ridicule you for leaving a job that was destroying your mental health. Yes, you have your future and happiness to think of. Your sister thought you would pay child support forever, but didn't she entertain the possibility that you might have a family of your own one day and want to put them first? She sees you as a free ride, not as a family. Your sister's mad because she now has to step up and be an adult and pay for childcare or find some other accommodations for her children. The fact that you paid it in the first place should have been like a gift, and gifts are something done willingly, not out of necessity or guilt. If she's old enough to have children, she's old enough to pay for the childcare or find the daddy for child support. She pulls the kids out of childcare and watches them herself if she doesn't. OP, this is not your problem. So, kind of a weird situation. I, 26 male, have an awesome girlfriend, Kendall, 26. We've been together for 3 years and I plan to marry her. We have a great friend group that includes many of my high school friends and their girlfriends. We typically meet up twice a week, and I live for these hangouts. Kendall has some social anxiety, so sometimes it isn't easiest to get her out of her shell. But for the most part, she really does try, and my friends love her. So the whole situation revolves around my good friend Mandy, 26 female. Mandy and I have been friends since high school, went to the same college, and became best friends. She's a main character in our friend group. At first, Mandy and Kendall were great friends, but one night, Mandy joked with Kendall that they were Eskimo sisters. Kendall asked what she meant. The truth is that one night 5 years ago, while in college, Mandy and I drank too much at a frat formal and slept together. We hardly remember this and think it's hilarious now. We make jokes about it. When Kendall found out, she had a panic attack, and we had to leave. We talked it over, and I said I didn't feel like it was all that relevant. We're just friends. Kendall said she was fine and that it was just shocking. I reassured her that it was one night 5 years ago and meant nothing. Ever since, it's been a pattern. We'll go out with my friends. Kendall will see Mandy. A panic attack ensues, and we have to leave. It's happened 5 or 6 times now, to the point where my friends ask why we just leave randomly. Kendall isn't a jealous person at all. She's very confident in herself and never displays jealous tendencies. But for some reason, when she sees Mandy, she has a panic attack. But she keeps wanting to hang out with the group and prove that it doesn't bother her. So she keeps wanting to hang out. But when she does, panic attack, then we leave. So I've gotten tired of this. I want to see my friends. So we had a trivia night recently, and I told Kendall that I was hanging with my work friends, not my high school friend group. She said she'd hang out at home then. So a coworker and I met up with my friend group and did a trivia night. Unfortunately, one of my friends put up a story of us all, and Kendall saw it. When I got home, she was furious that I excluded her from a friend group hangout. I said that I felt like she was isolating me from my friends with her issues, and I wanted to see them for a whole night, not 30 minutes. She said she couldn't control her panic attacks, but she's working on them, and my excluding her because of them was an idiot move. Yes, you are the idiot for lying to the person you say you plan on marrying about who you're spending time with. But for some reason, when she sees Mandy, she breaks into a panic attack. For some reason? It's probably because you two got wasted and slept together, and she knows about it. So stop laughing about that night and lying to her, fueling her panic attacks and anxiety. So you neglected to disclose to Kendall that you and Mandy had a non-platonic history. She's felt uncomfortable around Mandy ever since. And your solution is to pull more crap with Mandy behind her back? If you're tired of her pretending she's fine with the situation when she's not, fine, but support her in getting help. Don't go out of your way to make things worse, and quit pretending it's no big deal, because she's even expressed a willingness to work with you on getting past this. Instead of questioning which relationship matters more to you, makes her a more generous person than I am. Kendall's anxiety and social issues aside, you lied to her about who you're hanging out with because you didn't want to deal with her. You broke her trust. This is not how you treat someone you think is awesome. That's not how you treat someone you want to marry. Of course nothing's going on between Mandy and me. Trust me. How can she trust you? What reason have you given her to trust you? I, female 31, have been with my boyfriend 37 for 8 months. He has 3 kids and is a single dad. We're on pretty good terms regarding almost everything. When it comes to money and spending, we'll take turns inviting each other out weekly. We don't live together, obviously. Several times he had me pay for his kids' purchases. I didn't make a big issue out of it because those purchases were relatively small. All I had to pay was $30 to $60. The other day he called me at work and sounded like he was in a hurry. He said he just found the gaming device he's been looking for so long and wanted to buy it for his oldest son. I asked what this had to do with me, and he told me that he was short on money and needed $300. He asked me to lend him the $300, and I hesitated, but agreed. He asked for my bank account info so he could pull the money, but I refused and just told him to wait for me until I got there. He insisted and said he'd handle it. All I had to do was just send him my bank account info after I ended the call with him. His insistence made me uncomfortable, so I still said no and told him to wait, or I won't pay. He got mad at me, saying he didn't get why I was acting like this. He got so loud I had to hang up. I found him sitting outside after I went home. He was waiting for me and was extremely upset. He asked why I didn't just send him the account info so we could pull the money we agreed on. I told him I don't feel comfortable letting anyone have my info, especially concerning finances. He got offended and said, "I'm not just anyone. I'm your darn partner." Then he went on a rant about how he ended up not paying for the gaming device after looking for it for so long, and now his kid is mad at him, and it's my fault. We had a fight, then he left, and told me I'd better have an apology for him and his son next time I call his phone. I haven't called yet, but I feel like I acted stupidly and irrationally. I should have just given him the info he asked for. I don't know if I made the right decision. Am I the idiot? Oh, heck no, not the idiot. You've been with him for only 8 months, and he's already demanding that you lend him money and give him your bank account info? It sounds like those small purchases he got you to do for his kids were his way of softening you up, so he could later on request a big purchase and you'd be used to it, so wouldn't hesitate. You didn't act irrationally. He did. If he can't afford it, he must wait until he can. I wouldn't give my mother my bank account details, and she would never ask either, let alone a partner I've only been with for less than a year. I'm surprised he doesn't have red flag written in a Sharpie on his forehead. OP is being gaslit by her boyfriend. He waited outside her home to light into her for not giving him her bank account info. And he expects her to apologize to him and his son because he didn't have enough money to buy an unnecessary gaming device. What? OP, you're being manipulated and made to feel guilty for being rational. He's using you. It's only the beginning, but it's up to you whether you allow it to continue. Drop this loser and move on. I'm a 27-year-old woman, and I have a very young daughter. Her dad has no contact with us, as it was an abusive relationship which I escaped when she was 10 months old. I have a restraining order against him. For the past 4 months, I've been seeing a 30-year-old guy who is honestly really nice. He knows I have a daughter from a past relationship. They've met a couple of times, but not spent any length of time together. We were meant to be going on a date last night, but my babysitter canceled due to a family emergency with little to no warning. So I was basically ready for my date and left with no one to watch my daughter. I sent him a text explaining the situation and saying if he wanted, we could rearrange or maybe we could bring her with us. He said we could take her with us. So he turned up and the three of us headed out. The plans were changed because of her, and instead of going for a movie and a nice meal, we went to McDonald's and then the arcade. He was honestly great with her, and I felt confident about this relationship going forward as it went so well. This morning, though, I got a text from him asking if he'd passed the test. Confused, I asked him what he meant, and he said that I'd set that up to put him on the spot and see how he'd get on with her, right? That it was fine, if a bit underhanded, and that I could have just asked him to meet her. I was surprised by this and told him no, the babysitter really had canceled at the last second, and I wouldn't have lied about that and pointed out how I'd left the choice to him if we rearranged or took her with us. I'm upset by this. I'm not gonna lie to you all. I'm rusty on dating. The one serious relationship I had was with my daughter's bio father, so maybe I missed something here, and suggesting we bring her rather than just canceling myself was out of line. I don't want him to feel like I was testing him. Yes, seeing him with her made me feel more confident in the relationship, but it's not like I set out with that goal in mind. Despite my protest, he doesn't seem to believe me that it wasn't a setup. Am I the idiot for bringing her with us? Not the idiot. So this one probably won't last. He doesn't trust you. If he doesn't believe you about this little thing, how do you think he'll treat you down the line? Also, something to consider. Was this even the real him? If he went into this date with you and your daughter, thinking he was being set up for a test, maybe he was putting on an extra show of being great with her. Possible he is and would be good with her, but also possible he had to try extra hard to pass his test. It's important to note that people who assume they're being manipulated like this have a history of manipulation, and that can be because they're usually the one who manipulates people. The fact that he's holding this over you and distrusting you in a, look, I'm so smart I figured out you were being manipulative, and you're just stupid because I caught on, is bizarre and reminds me strongly of someone I knew who should be in jail for life. Yeah, it's off because he's showing who he is behind the mask. It's like when cheaters start projecting and accuse a faithful partner of cheating. Or in this case, when someone manipulative assumes a date is testing them because that's something they would do. Maybe Google up red flags in relationships to see if this is a one-off or just one entry in a series of them. I have been estranged from my sister since she had an affair with my ex-fiancé. I found out because my brother caught the two of them together. She tried to get my blessing for them to be together. I told her to consider herself down one sister, and I never wanted to see her again. I stuck to my word. She married my ex, had kids with him, and is stuck by him through his destroying their finances. 3 years ago, he was arrested, and my sister found out the guy letting her and the kids stay was no longer okay, so she called family members. My aunt told her my parents were out of town and she should go to their house. My parents were on vacation. My sister lives 3 states from our parents, and I'm in the middle. She called her aunt to say she couldn't find a place she could afford overnight, so my aunt gave her my address and told her to stay with me. She showed up and I shut the door. She called her aunt. Aunt called me. She told me the story. I refused to let them stay. Aunt said it was just for one night. I stuck to my word. Aunt ended up paying for a place for them to stay. My sister was there when my parents got home, and nobody had told them. Then my saying no turned into a debate among the whole family. My siblings, the ones I still talk to, all said that I should never have been a place she would even dare to show up at. One of them also refused to let her stay overnight, so they weren't afraid to stand up for me. My parents said that they understand. They just hated that my sister's kids were upset and not having anywhere to go at night, and that the place they ended up at was scary. They told me they understood. They just wished I could have found some way to love her kids and give them a place to sleep. But they also know I never met them, and we're strangers to each other and to my husband and kids. Other family members are not seeing it that way, and I've been told that I should be ashamed of myself, that I'm hateful, and that they hope I need to beg her for something one day, and she leaves me in the dust too, and my kids. According to my siblings, she's been saying how angry she is that I didn't give her kids a place to stay, and she's called me a heartless witch. Am I the idiot? Oh no, your sister, who's such a stand-up person that she slept with your fiance, thinks you're a bad person? Who cares what she thinks? Not the idiot, OP. Why is no one mentioning that the aunt is the real villain here? She's not only the idiot, but I almost wonder if legal action can be taken due to the hugely blatant privacy violation of giving her address to an estranged, not wanted ex-sister. Some relatives try to fix all the problems in a family, like as if the issues will disappear overnight. I would consider paying a distant family member to show up at aunt's house with kids, who also have been suitably bribed to look pathetic and cry on cue, telling her that you said she thought it was perfectly fine for people to drop in with the expectation of overnight housing without so much as a heads up that she'd be glad to let them stay. Your aunt is the idiot for volunteering at your home, especially knowing you were no contact with sister. I say block any flying monkeys. It's not their place to get involved. If they want to anyway, they can share sister's no contact policy. I strongly suspect that Auntie was trying to arrange a forced reconciliation between the sisters. Your former sister's now seeing the consequences of her actions. How droll. Your sister seems to make terrible choices all the time. Marrying your ex, leaving her home in a hurry, having 3 kids, and no money to spend the night somewhere. None of this is your problem or responsibility. Her children may be innocent, but she's using them as a weapon against you. Don't ever let her lob those grenades into your life. My wife and I had our baby boy 5 weeks ago. Everything's going fine. No health problems or complications whatsoever. However, my wife is often exhausted, so I let my mom come over to help with cleaning and stuff. I barely have time to work, and also at the same time, spend time with the baby and bond with him a little bit. The thing is, my wife acts strange whenever she sees my mom with our son. She'd make a face and talk to her in a condescending tone, even raising her voice at her, causing mom to feel hurt. I asked my wife about it, and she said it was because of what my mom was doing. I asked her to elaborate, and she complained about mom holding the baby for a long time and taking forever to give him back to her. Mom argued that my wife could ask nicely instead of outright yelling, but my wife defended herself, saying that she only started raising her voice after asking a couple of times and that mom won't listen. They started arguing and mom started crying. That's when I felt enraged, pulled my wife aside, and told her to stop acting out, and that if she kept this up, we wouldn't get any more help from my mom. She argued that she was trying to feed our son and that it was awful of me to think of it as acting out. I said I understood her frustration, and yes, mom can do things that require some patience from us, but a little kindness can go a long way in keeping the peace in this difficult time. She called me selfish and said that it's easy for me to say when I'm not the one, quote, dealing with this. From there, the argument escalated, despite me trying to cut it short. Finally, I went outside to calm down, and after that, my wife started cold shouldering me. I told her this was not okay, but she told me to go screw myself, and that from now on out, I should deal with taking our son back from my mom when it's time for feeding, since I condone this behavior. I'm not condoning anything and think she's stressed out, but the way she behaves around mom, in my opinion, is not okay. What is your mother doing to help you and your wife with cleaning and household management? If by helping, you mean she's holding the baby while your wife takes care of all the household drudgery, that isn't helping. She's just having fun with the baby like a selfish idiot. Well, this doesn't surprise me, since she's the one who raised a massive idiot for a son. OP, you need to start respecting your wife. Be enraged at your mom for making your wife upset. Pull your mom aside and talk to her about being the one who's acting out. OP should understand the baby's needs more, since he's still breastfeeding himself. I'm trying to picture how I'd feel if I gave birth 5 weeks ago, had to ask multiple times for access to my own baby, and then my husband told me I was the problem. I wouldn't feel good about my marriage, that's for sure. Did you marry her just to get a grandbaby for your mom? It sounds like mom is not only doing the opposite of helping, she's preventing baby from eating while she does the opposite of helping. It seems like OP's wife is breastfeeding from the post, and OP's mom is literally doing the worst thing ever to a new mom, trying to build up a supply. Baby is just about to hit a major growth spurt. The milk supply needs to be kept up. Actually writing that out, it seems like OP's mom is sabotaging breastfeeding on purpose because she wants to be able to feed formula to the baby. Update. My goodness, I'm seeing so much anger here. I'm sorry I cannot respond to you all, but I just want people to calm down and understand that I in no way agree with some of my mom's behaviors. Just how my wife reacts is not okay, and that's all, really. Thank you very much, though. My 27 female brother, Jake, fake name 25, transitioned from female to male 3 years ago. I was and am completely supportive of him. I am getting married next year, and I've been gathering my bridesmaid team. My twin sister will be my maid of honor, and it was also important for me to have Jake with me at the altar. So I asked Jake if he would be my bridesman and be a part of my side of the wedding party. I didn't think it would be an issue, but Jake freaked out. Jake said he should be a groomsman for my fiance. After all, he doesn't want to be seen with my bridesmaids, all 3 of whom are girls, because people will just think he was a girl. He accused me of asking him to be a bridesman because I still thought of him as a girl, which isn't true. I explained that it didn't make sense for him to stand by my fiance because they've only met a handful of times, and my fiance already has the budget-approved number of groomsmen. And besides, Jake is my brother, and I want him to stand by me and support me during the wedding. Plus, before Jake transitioned, I had always planned to include him in my wedding, so why should his gender change anything about that? I see his argument that it might make him feel dysphoric, but having bridesmen is becoming a common tradition. Besides, he has a beard and he'd be wearing a suit, so there's no way anyone would think he was a girl. Jake and I fought back and forth for a while, and I finally snapped and told him he couldn't be in the wedding at all if he didn't want to stand by my side. He called me an idiot, and it made me feel awful. I needed to vent about it to strangers. So, am I the idiot? Edit. He's still invited to the wedding as a guest. I just told him he couldn't be in the wedding party if he's not a bridesman. Not the idiot. You aren't telling him he has to restrict how he dresses or making him dress like a gender he isn't. He can be the bridesman, the man he is. I always think it's weird when people stand on the opposite person's side to keep genders separated. He's a bridesman, he's your bro. But if you're from an area that's super weird, I can get where he's coming from. Yeah, he's from your side of the family and isn't close with your fiance. If he wants an active role in the wedding, he has to compromise. Otherwise, what? He'll be the ring bearer? I've seen some amazing adult ring bearers in Flower Man. Hopefully he doesn't take offense if offered the position. He may feel offended as an adult, you know? You are the idiot. It will make him feel dysphoric. He can be there loving and supporting you on your big day without being the only man in a group of girls, if making him do so will make him feel like his gender identity is being disrespected. I completely understand why that would make him feel self-conscious and why he would prefer to be a part of the male group. Exactly. He told you that being on the women's side would make him feel dysphoric. and you instantly dismissed his feelings and told him that if he wouldn't stand where you wanted him to, you would remove him from the wedding party. I get that you don't think it's a big deal, but you are presumably a cis woman who's never experienced significant and long-term gender dysphoria. I'm currently in high school, and I live with my dad and brother. My mom's not in the picture anymore. While I'm not very close with my father, he's not a bad dad. He's just a little old-fashioned, so he's closer to my brother. They have the same hobbies, etc. On to the problem. I don't know how it started, but for the past couple of months, my dad and my brother will start teasing me about that time of the month anytime I get remotely irritated or upset at them. For example, my brother ate a snack of mine that I was saving, and when I got mad, he just joked, "Oh no, is it that time again?" in a super annoying voice. I kept trying to tell them separately and together that it's annoying and offensive. I feel like they're minimizing how I feel about things I had valid reasons for being annoyed about. Instead, they just brush it off even more and chalk it up to my period no matter what time of the month it is. Well, yesterday we had dinner with my whole family on my dad's side for my aunt's birthday. Before dinner, I got into a huge fight with my brother because he broke my iPad. And instead of apologizing, he just said the whole time of the month thing. I admit that I was pretty angry when we got to my grandma's house. My cousin asked me what was wrong during dinner, and before I could explain, my brother interrupted with, "Oh, it's just lady problems." I usually ignore him or hold things, but I had had enough and started bawling. I admit that I kind of went ham on purpose to cause a scene, which freaked my whole family out. My aunt asked my dad why I was so upset, and when he didn't know, I told my aunt, "It's just lady reasons," according to dad and brother. My aunt and grandma were very angry with my dad and brother, and they totally got reamed at the dinner table. It was a whole thing, and I could tell they were super embarrassed. But I said that I was acting the way they always say I do, so I guess I didn't have to do it during dinner, but it wasn't like I planned it. Not the idiot. Bah, OP. You caught them on their misogynistic BS. They were disrespecting you and using weapons that are hard for a young woman to battle against. They should never have done this to you. You are right for what you did, for you were pushed to the end of your rope and you didn't know what else to do. I get that. They're not blaming her feelings on her period. They're letting her know they don't care about her feelings, boundaries, or personal belongings because she's female. OP, it doesn't matter what time of the month it is. Your feelings are always valid. Don't let them convince you otherwise. If they're embarrassed about people finding out how they treat you, they shouldn't treat you that way. You should tell them that if they call you an idiot again. Many years ago, I remarked to my wife about a female coworker who was particularly irritable that day. Unfortunately, I associated it with that day of the month, similarly disrespectfully as you describe it here. As a result, my wife unscrewed my head and screwed it back on the right way. I painfully remember this after literally several decades because it was so embarrassing. Already back then, however, I knew that I and nobody else was responsible for the embarrassment. Lesson learned. Perhaps your father and brother should develop a little humility. I, 32 female, will be getting married next year. We discussed our wedding plans over dinner when my mom asked about the dress. It's not going to be an extravagant wedding, but I would like to wear a nice dress. This is probably the only time I'll get to wear something formal, and you'll see why. My mom asked me when I was going to start dress shopping. I hate to say this, but I blurted out, "Who says you're going with me?" I love my mom, but she's controlling. Being an immigrant with no concept of American culture is another thing. In high school, I wanted to attend prom with my friends, but my mom and I argued over what I would wear. I wanted a fancy, sparkling dress like what my friends were getting, and she wanted me to wear one of her dresses. This outdated black dress from the 80s looked terrible on me. Like, I cried when I put it on. I didn't want to wear it. We fought over it, ending with me not being allowed to go. Since I wasn't allowed to have a job at the time, I couldn't come up with the money myself to pay for my dress or a ticket. I still resent her for this, as there are several things from high school I was either barred from doing, sports, marching band, senior trip, French class, or got forced into doing and hated, scholarship clubs, Chinese class, best buddies. There was some back and forth, but in the end, I made my point clear. I was still mad at her for making me miss out on a huge milestone over something as stupid as a dress. I want to be able to pick something I want to wear without her input or have her to try to get me to wear other outdated horror that is her wedding dress to save money. I'm digging my heels into this point, but my dad called an hour ago saying that I hurt her feelings. I'm sure I heard crying on the other end of the line, so maybe I took it too far this time. I need an outside opinion. On the one hand, I don't want her to control this second chance I have, but on the other hand, I did make her cry. Am I the idiot? Oh, boo-hoo, her feelings are hurt. Well, now she knows how it feels to miss a major milestone. And of course, she's never apologized or made it up to you. But she's the victim? LOL. Not the idiot. Your mom has proven she isn't to be trusted with an event of this nature. Her tears are her own responsibility, not yours. Please don't fall for it. Tell your dad. What about my feelings that she had no problem hurting repeatedly? You are right to set this boundary, and she has to learn to respect it the hard way. And if she refuses to understand and threatens not to come, don't yield. Also, don't forget to tell her she'll be the one looking stupid because she chose this dumb hill to die on. It's your wedding, not hers. And if she can't be happy for you and has to make things about herself, then it's her loss. Everyone's the idiot here. I can see why your mother's upset, but I can also see why you don't trust her in this. You and she have a lot to talk about. I guess she thinks you should let this go because it was 15 years ago and shouldn't be important anymore. For you, on the other hand, it's still an open wound that hurts. It appears you two have a way to go before getting past this.